Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Welcome to What She Said, the heartbeat of Canadian women's voices, with me, your host, Candace Sampson. Here, we dive deep into the raw, unfiltered stories and triumphs of women from coast to coast. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement where empowerment and education collide and where mansplaining is shown the door. We're here to celebrate, uplift, and echo you. So get cozy, tune in, and let's embark on this journey together, exploring the rich tapestry of women's lives, their battles and victories, right here on What She Said. This week's show is a love letter to Nova Scotia, a place that's more than just a destination. It's a call to the heart that's hard to resist, especially for someone like me with deep roots stretching back to 1545. Yes, you heard that right. My ancestral lines, the Sampsons from France and the Conways and Clanjardine from the British Isles, planted their lives on this rugged, beautiful island centuries ago. And every time I visit, I feel that pull. That calling to come home, which I know many of you will understand once you've experienced Cape Breton for yourself. This place isn't just captivating with its landscapes. It's enriched with people whose kindness transcends the usual niceties, genuine, heartfelt, and deeply woven into the fabric of the community. The land here is as unspoiled as it is stunning, a backdrop that sets the stage for today's exciting lineup. First, I'm chatting with Pam Wamback from Tourism Nova Scotia, who will unfold the treasure map of trails, culinary gems, and hidden spots that make Nova Scotia a must-visit. So get ready to mark your maps and plan your next adventure. Then we dive into the heart of Cape Breton's musical soul with Yvette Rogers, who will share the enchanting story of the Celtic Colours International Festival. It's an event that knits music, culture, and the breathtaking fall scenery of Cape Breton into one unforgettable experience. And finally, hold on to your hats because Colin McAllister, yes, that Colin from Colin and Justin, is here to talk about transforming the old into the spectacularly new at the North Star Resort in Louisbourg, a design journey that turns dreams into reality. Plus, Colin addresses the call of the Cape, which is undeniable for anyone, whether you have roots there or not. So buckle up, grab a warm drink, and let me take you on a journey to a place that might just call you home too. This is What She Said, and we're about to explore the magical, the heartwarming, and the transformative on Cape Breton Island right here, right now. I've just returned from touring around Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and believe me when I say I'm already trying to convince my family to move there with me. If you've not been, I can't stress enough how much you need to add this destination to the top of your travel list. From the jaw-dropping scenery to the friendly locals, Cape Breton has a way of capturing your heart. And that's just a piece of what Nova Scotia has to offer. Today, I'm joined by Pam Wamback from Tourism Nova Scotia, and we're going to explore the incredible trails that stretch across the province. Whether you're sampling chowder, enjoying lobster, or hiking coastal paths, there's truly something for everyone. Pam, I am so excited to chat with you today. Welcome to What She Said.
Thank you. Thanks, Candace. And I'm so glad you had a fantastic trip in Nova Scotia.
Oh, it was amazing. And I'm a travel writer, so my job is to tell people about destinations. But I'm not going to lie, I really want to gatekeep this a little bit. It's just so perfect. But I'm going to be professional. So I really want to talk to you about the absolutely astounding number of trails that there are there for people to explore. So let's start with the classic, the Cabot Trail, which was one of is the most famous, I think, probably in Nova Scotia, and my personal favorite. So for those who might not know, though, what makes the Cabot Trail so special, and how can visitors make the most of their time there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Cabot Trail is definitely what we call one of our masterpieces here in the province. You find it out up in the northern part of the province in Cape Breton Island. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something magical about it. For one thing, it's pretty easy to get around. It's a nice cyclical route that you can get around. And I think it's because it touches into kind of all the pieces that make Nova Scotia such a treasure, quite frankly. You've got the highlands of Cape Breton, so you're like with these magnificent scenic views from the top of the mountains down into the valleys that are just this time of year flooded with color, right, for the leaves and such. You're weaving in and out of a national park and into small communities and fishing villages where, again, just more scenic opportunities and photo ops as you go along, and the people that you encounter too. So, and the cultural elements, like, I think it's just because it's got a little bit of everything as you go around there. And you can easily do it in a day, but I usually recommend at least taking a couple of days so that you're not spending the whole time driving, so that you can actually get out and experience some of what makes the Cabot Trail so magical. And it's not just us saying that. It's been voted one of the most scenic drives in the world by Travel and Leisure, by Condé Nast, multiple magazines, writers from around the world. So it's something that's very easy for us to boast about.
Yeah, and I think if people like driving, like I love driving,
Me too.
I love road trips. That road is super sexy. I mean, it's curvy, it goes all around, it's smooth, and all of the, like you, as you said, and there's a lot of lookouts along the way. There was a lot of planning that went into that road, because I couldn't get over the number of lookouts you could just pull over and just take in all of this breathtaking scenery. And as you said, so different as you go around the island.
Yeah.
Cap Rouge, the water was just banging into the coastline, and it was so beautiful. And then it was so calm on the other side.
Yeah.
It really was spectacular.
It's probably one of my favorite things about my home in Nova Scotia in general, is that for being such a small province, when you look at us on the map, right, we look kind of small compared to other destinations. But don't let that fool you, because there's a lot of geography to cover. And I love the fact that it's so diverse from one part of the province to another in terms of the history, the culture, the geography that you find, that you don't have to travel very far to actually start to see that diversity as you go across. So I always say, and some people think it's because I have to, but it's not. I feel like there's something here for everyone, no matter what your interests are. You can find it, and find it relatively easily, and you don't have to go very far to find it either.
Well, for me, it was funny because my roots in Cape Breton go back to 1545, when on my dad's side, and then my mom's side, I have Scottish and Irish. So going around that trail for me was, I was getting it all. There was the Irish, there was the Scottish, there was the French side over in Shetty Camp.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just everything. And as you mentioned, the cultural aspect of it, the music, the food, and just the difference in even the people around, all super nice, but there was a definite difference as you went around.
You even find in places like when you go into Shetty Camp, right? It's kind of the language itself is this mix of English and Acadian French with some Gaelic influence. Whereas if you go to the eastern side of the island, when you're in a place like El Madame, is where the Acadian, French in the language is what you're going to hear more dominant throughout those. But then if you kind of go into the center part of the island itself, is where the Gaelic influence is pretty strong. There's no other place in Canada that you're going to come across where you see road signs in both English and Gaelic.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, but yeah, I stayed in Iona at is it the
Highland? The Highland Heights.
Heights,
yeah,
Highland Heights, and their little pub there. They had little Gaelic language. I felt like, having just visited Ireland in the spring, I felt like I was in Ireland in this pub. It was really special. So amazing. But we can't spend the whole time talking about the Cabot Trail as much as I would like to.
We could, but we won't.
I could do a whole show on the Cabot Trail. But let's talk about for foodies, because Nova Scotia, really brings it. You've got a chowder trail, a lobster trail, a good cheer trail. It seems like you can eat and drink your way through the whole province. So can you give us a little taste, not to make a little pun, of what travelers can expect from these foodie trails?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. Like, we talk about trails, like even when you come into the province, we kind of have it broken into regional trails. So for visitors coming in, they want to have a particular interest, whether it's, like you said, the Cabot Trail, the Cayley Trail in Cape Breton, through the lighthouse route on the South Shore, which obviously would be kind of has, the highest population of lighthouses. So we kind of break it down. And then we, a number of years ago looked at it, was like, well, there's obviously other interests. So from a culinary perspective, obviously people think of us from a seafood perspective, and it's pretty strong, and it's, fishing is one of our major economies here. But having that fresh access to our fish and seafood is very important to us. And so breaking it down, obviously lobster was an easy one. It's one of the largest fisheries that we have in the province as well. But the lobster trail is not just about where you're going out and finding a lobster dinner. It's also about the creative ways our chefs are using lobster to create various dishes. I've actually done a piece on our website that's like how you can have lobster incorporated into your day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, even dessert if you want to, or drinking it.
Okay, you didn't share that with me. That's not fair, Pam.
But I love the creativity of our chefs. And then also on the lobster trail too is the places that you can go to learn more about the lobster fishing here, right? With tour operators who take you out on actual lobster fishing boats and show you how the lobster fishing is done, or going into visiting a lobster pound, such as in Halls Harbor in the Annapolis Valley, and learning how the actual process works, how you get the lobster from the boat and how it gets to your plate. So it's those type of things as well. Then you look at the chowder trail. I mean, chowder is kind of a staple for us here on the East Coast, right? But again, like many things, it's got some core ingredients, but home chefs, restaurant chefs and all have that creativity to kind of change it up so that I think we have like 50 or 60 different restaurants on the Chowder Trail now, and no two are alike, right? So that you kind of tasting the difference, whether it's from seafood or fish to your vegetables to, I've seen ones like corn and sausage, corn chowders, those type of things. So I love that variety. And keeping in mind too, our seafood and our fish is fantastic, but a lot of people don't realize that we have such a strong agricultural region here too. So we're growing a lot of our own produce. Everything from Arctic kiwis to white asparagus is grown in Nova Scotia. So it's incorporating all that local produce in there too. And then, of course, yes, we obviously like our beverages here in Nova Scotia. And if you think back, actually, it dates back to 1604 when Champlain first landed in the Port Royal area, and he created the Port Royal settlement. And he was a very social guy, and he created l'Ordre de Bon Temps, the Order of Good Cheers or Good Times. It's a social club, and that's kind of still exists today. So that's how the Good Cheer Trail came about. And it really was the first one in Canada to celebrate all of our wineries, cideries, distilleries, and breweries that are on there. So again, for me, I love the creativity and the variety that's coming out of our producers and our operators using local ingredients and products to inspire people to travel around and try different mixes, concoctions, whether it's from straight up spirits to cocktails to beers. We even have a brewery on the South Shore that makes a lobster infused ale.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't know if the North Star is on the Chowder Trail, but I had the best chowder I've ever had at their restaurant, Colin and Justin's restaurant at the North Star.
Right.
Incredible chowder. They would not share the recipe with me. I'm still a little sour about it, but if you find yourself in Louisbourg, you have to stop in and have the chowder at the North Star. Absolutely amazing.
I recommend it as well, definitely.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break, Pam, and we're going to come back because we have lots more trail to discuss. But we'll be right back after this message from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Hi, I'm Steve Yerko.
And I'm Tara Sands. Now available from Maji Media is our new podcast, 4Kids Flashback. 4Kids is the company who brought you the English dub of Pokemon in the late 90s and so many other shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shaman King, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kirby, the infamous One Piece dub, and so many more.
We'll be talking to the people who worked at 4Kids. Actors, directors, writers, editors, producers, engineers, you get the point. And hopefully get the answers to questions both you and I have about the company.
I actually worked there as a voice actor on some of the shows.
And I was a kid watching the shows and remember way more than Tara does.
And thank God for that. Steve is actually a professional storyboard artist, which gives some really unique insights into anime and animation. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts. That's the number 4 Kids Flashback.
Okay, we're back with Pam Wamback from Tourism Nova Scotia. Pam, let's talk about nature. I mean, especially I was there during the fall colors, so I think that is your best season as far as I'm concerned. Wow. So I know there's the Celtic Shores Coastal Trail and the Harvest Moon Trailway. Can you tell us about those and why they're perfect for people who want to connect with nature?
Yeah. It was quite a few years ago. I mean, as like many other destinations, but they were brought about with through the Trans-Canada Trail movement, right? So they were decommissioned railway lines, and so how to use those and how do you involve the communities? So there's actually 3 that we have in the province now. So Celtic Shores and the Harvest Moon are 2 of them. The third is the Rum Runners Trail. But again, all designed to kind of involve the communities, get people out and about, and be multi-use trails, as well as to take advantage of same as like the Cabot Trail, just more from a like bike riding or walking perspective, right, so that you're weaving in and out of communities, around trails, around trailheads and such like that too. So they provide an opportunity for people to get off the road and actually, engage and immerse themselves, I find, into the destination. The Celtic Shores ones is about 92 kilometers. That kind of travels along the west coast side of Cape Breton Island. So from the Causeway or Port Hastings up around that, the western side through to Inverness that you get there. The Harvest Moon one is on mainland and goes through the Annapolis Valley. So it's just over 100, I think it's 110 kilometers that takes you from Grand Pre, which is a UNESCO heritage site that we have, one of 6, by the way, in Nova Scotia, and it runs through the Annapolis Valley down to the Annapolis Royal area. So it's very different from what your Celtic Colours or the Celtic Shores one along Cape Breton. That one you're kind of, it's a more rugged coastline in and out of fishing communities and such. Whereas the one Harvest Moon is taking you through the valley, through apple orchards and farmlands and vineyards as you go travel almost parallel to the Bay of Fundy.
So from nature, which is just awe-inducing there, let's move to music, because that seems to run through the veins of the people who live there. It is everywhere, especially, during Celtic Colours. I didn't go into a single restaurant where there was not music playing the entire time. Aside from seeing the concerts, there was music in every restaurant. There were ceilidhs happening, unofficial, sort of just in the communities that you could go to, everywhere. So tell me about the ceilidh Trail specifically. And for anyone who loves music, what kind of experiences can they expect when following this trail?
Well, the ceilidh Trail, again, is another kind of driving route there that's named aptly so, kind of along the western shore, western half of Cape Breton Island, before it actually connects to the Cabot Trail at one point to get there. But it was actually named as such because a lot of our local musicians have their homes or their roots are based along the Celtic, along the ceilidh shore. You think of like Natalie McMaster and Buddy McMaster. You think of the Rankins. and the Bear McNeils and such, right? They all have their homes or they came from that particular area. So there's such a strong musical vibe there. But it's actually not that uncommon in many places that you go across the province. I mean, Cayley itself means, it's kind of Gaelic for kitchen party. So even I grew up on the southwestern part of the province, but I remember growing up, like my parents, my aunts and uncles were always playing the music. You can see, if you could see behind me here, I have a banjo and a guitar playing, hanging on my wall that belonged to my dad. So there was always some form of music around. And even you said like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was what we call maritime music or East Coast music kind of scene and vibe. No matter which bar, pub, restaurant you went in, there was that music and there's local musicians playing, right? And very, very popular. And it got supported by a lot of businesses. Look at Tim Hortons is a great example, which has Nova Scotia connections. But they were one of the businesses early on who supported the musicians like Natalie McMaster and Ashley McIsaac and the Rankins and such. And so you kind of bring it back to the Cayley and the Cayley Trail. You have now the Celtic Music Center that's located along the Cayley Trail, which tells the story of a lot of the artists that are from that area, but why Celtic music is so vibrant and so alive here in Nova Scotia. And what I love is even throughout Cape Breton, especially in the summer, but year round as well, is that it doesn't matter which community you go in on any given night, especially on the weekends, there's bound to be a community dance, square dance, Cayley, whatever you want to call it. And I love going in and it's local musicians that are playing 3 or 4 hours straight. They're just driving her for 3 or 4 hours. And it's the community that comes out to support that. Young and old, whether they're kids from 10 years old to 92 years old. I can remember going to one of my first dances there. I didn't really know the steps or anything, but it didn't matter because somebody just inevitably pulled you up from the chair and you joined in. And it didn't take very long to kind of figure it out because it's very repetitive dance steps that they do. But again, it's that community involvement. And a lot of them are dry. So it's not even about that, traditional party scene or pub scene. It's experiencing the culture, the music, the vitality, I think, of those communities themselves.
Now, I just want to go back too, because from the music, I just want to go back. You mentioned briefly the Rum Runners Trail. That's a really fun name.
Yes.
And has a bit of an intriguing history. So can you share some of the stories behind it and why it's a must-do for history buffs?
Yeah. Well, the Rum Runners Trail, again, is similar to the Celtic Shores and the Harvest Moon. This particular trail is a multi-use trail that runs from Halifax down to Lunenburg on the south shore, on the southwestern part of the province. Again, it's around 120 kilometers, I think. But rum running itself has a history in Nova Scotia. So it actually happened during the days of the Prohibition days of history, right? There was a lot of pirating and privateering that went on off the shores. Trading between Europe and the West Indies, the Caribbean and such. And rum was one of those major commodities. In a lot of ways, rum was used as a form of currency in some of the destinations that was common from the places that they were stopping and going. So it just made sense to name it the Rum Runners Trail, especially getting to places like Lunenburg and Liverpool on the southwest. And honestly, like, even growing up, I can tell you probably one of the most popular beverages you'll find in any of our pubs or bars here is a rum and coke, right? That was standard fare. That was around here. But like I said, it was often used as a form of currency. But it also ties into some of those communities, especially in the Southwest. Like Liverpool is called the Port of the Privateers. In Lunenburg, there was a distillery that opened a few years ago called Ironworks, and their original product is based on liqueurs and vodka that's made from apples in the Annapolis Valley. And the people in Lunenburg, diehard fishermen, right, the marine heritage, but you're going to be making rum. And the owners are like, well, not really, because, rum is usually sugarcane. You don't see a lot of sugarcane fields in Nova Scotia. Right? And he's like, well, no, we're going to use local products. But the locals kept saying, but you're going to have rum, right? And the owners were quickly okay, we got to find a way to somehow incorporate rum. That's right. And they actually partnered with Crosby's Molasses, that's based in St. John, New Brunswick, right? To make a rum that they call the Blue Nose rum. But even that itself, they age it out in barrels in Lunenburg Harbor on a boat. And the rocking motion contributes to the aging and that taste of the rum itself. And then you've got things like Oak Island and the Mystery of Oak Island show that's ever so popular these days, in which they're finding connections there, like coconut fibers that have been found, buried 100 feet underground. You drove around. How many coconut trees did you see in Nova Scotia?
Not one.
None. Right? So even if you don't watch the show, but the artifacts they're finding all relate to that trade that was constantly going back and forth between Europe and the New World. So there's a lot of great historical, cultural, and let's be frank, a lot of folklore tales that contribute to that, but make it so interesting as well.
Well, I think people listening now are probably like, okay, there's definitely a couple of trails I want to visit. So how would you recommend visitors approach planning their trip? Should they focus on one theme, like food or nature, or is it possible to mix and match these trails to sort of get the best of many worlds?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it comes all down to personal interest. But the other great thing is that, like I said, we're small on the map, but you can travel and cover so much distance, and you don't really have to go very far to find those diverse pieces. Even if you're basing yourself in Halifax, within an hour's drive, you can be on the Lighthouse Route, right? And the fishing communities and the ragged coastline. Or you can go in an hour in the other direction and be in the Annapolis Valley, which is home to our wine region. It's Canada's original wine region in that area, and the farm markets that are there. Or you can be, an hour and a half up towards the Northumberland shore, which is our beachy destination, right? It's the warmest waters north of the Carolinas that are there. And, cool events like tidal bore rafting that you can only do in Nova Scotia as a result of those high tides in the Bay of Fundy. Or if you base yourself in Cape Breton, in a place like Bedeck, where you can easily go out every day and experience the Cayley Trail, the Cabot Trail, go to Louisbourg, go down to the French Shore regions. So it really is, I think, it really is. There's something for everyone here. It's what you want to do. Cape Breton has become known as a fantastic golf destination with some of the top-ranked golf courses in the world. People often don't think of Nova Scotia as a beach destination, but when we have over 13,000 kilometers of coastline, you're going to have a lot of beach opportunities there too that are uncrowded, unspoiled, and have it all to yourself, right? So it really comes down to those interests, but the food scene, no matter where you go, is always going to tie into that. And culinary is a hot topic, but I'm obviously biased, but I think we have a phenomenal culinary scene here,
really,
depending on what your interests are and what you're looking for.
You really, really do. And can I make a suggestion for a new trail, maybe?
Yes.
So, well, I was in Cape Breton. I was reintroduced to oatcakes at the High Wheeler Cafe in Bedeck. And I had completely forgotten how much I love oatcakes. And what surprised me, though, was how fiercely people guard their family recipes. Like, these are top secret treasures. So do you think you could create an oatcake trail where people can sample different versions across the province, or is that too much to ask?
No, I am with you on this one 100%. So I think if we get you on and your listeners and, we can, put the pressure on that should be our next trail created. Because like you said, the oatcakes themselves are pretty simple. They're basic ingredients. But I love, and it's actually probably even more relevant in Cape Breton because it ties into some of that Celtic heritage too, right? The Scottish heritage. Yeah. But I love that, yes, they're fiercely guarded recipes because there's always some little tweak that's done to it. And it's whether they're square or round, whether they're sweet or savory, whether they're soft, whether they're hard. Again, it may be all the same ingredients, but they're different as you travel around. And I'm fully supportive of developing the oatcake trail.
I think everybody should have oatcakes with them when they go hiking up in the Highlands, for sure. I had them on the trail with me when I was hiking up Franny Mountain on the last day, and they were perfect. The perfect thing to have with you. So Pam, for somebody who's already itching to return to Nova Scotia, share with me one lesser known trail or hidden gem that you think we should absolutely see.
I guess I'd have to say with this one, and somewhat of a personal bias, because I grew up in the southwestern tip of the province. And I find in kind of that area, like people kind of, when they're coming here, and I get it, when they're visiting for the first time, it's kind of Cape Breton or what I call the Golden Circle, which is kind of Halifax, Lunenburg, over to Wolfville, and the Annapolis Valley, right? But if you go past that, you're going to find Keji, which is, another one of our national parks, which is also the only national park in Parks Canada system that's also a National Historic Site because of the Mi'kmaq, or Indigenous cultures and historical elements there. But if you get on that southwestern tip, like from Shelburne, Yarmouth, Digby counties, we have the lobster capital of Canada that's in Barrington in that area. Again, fantastic culinary seafood that's there. The trails that are there. Digby is home of the world famous scallop fleet that's there. So the fresh seafood, you can actually visit wharfs called the Living Wharfs program and talk to the fishermen and learn how they're actually doing their trades and their fairs and how the boats work. And you actually get that variety of languages too, because there's an English interspersed with the Acadians along the Clare French shore as well. So if you take that little bit of effort, I think you'll find that the southwestern tip of the province is another one of those gems that's every bit as spectacular as Cape Breton Island, but very different as well.
All right. It's on my list.
Right.
Pam, I can't thank you enough. Where can people go to find all of these places and start planning their trip?
And so much more. Absolutely. Please visit novascotia.com. There's a ton of information on there. We break it down in the province into the regions that you can explore in more detail. There's a blog site as well that kind of gives some suggestions for, places, cottages to stay by the ocean that have hot tubs, or as I mentioned, how to have lobster morning, noon, and night with your meals, those type of things. So we kind of break down some interesting quirks and places to go depending on various interests as well. So novascotia.com is the first place to start to plan your visit to Nova Scotia.
All right. Amazing. Pam, I can't thank you enough for spending all this time with me today. I hope people really do take this seriously and start planning their trip.
Thank you so much. Thanks for visiting, and we hope to see you again someday.
Oh, you will.
Right?
Hey listeners, I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa, and this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
dirtbag murderers. She said she enjoyed hurting things that can't fight back.
And that is a disturbing view into the mind of a murderer and such a dirtbag.
Yeah, that's not even strong enough words. This is totally a recipe for disaster. And not to justify whatever is going to happen, but you can totally understand and see how this would be in the works.
If you were only to look at what she did later on and not know any of that history, she would appear like off the wall crazy.
Oh, 100%. Because we're not even close to getting to the end yet. But you can just see this pattern and all this kind of stuff developing in her, which is what we're here for. We're digging deep.
Join us each Thursday as we unearth the dirtbags that live among us
and the motives buried there. Hope you join us as we exhume the truth.
Hi, I'm Michelle Datis, host of Maverick Makers. Every week, I'm meeting entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs who are making it happen. These bold thinkers are taking big risks, are trailblazing the way in their industries and lives, and are changing how things are done or made. You will learn about their journeys, their lessons learned, and their biggest maverick moves to date. Listen to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at maverickmakerspodcast.com.
Music runs through the veins of Cape Bretoners, and nowhere is that more evident than during the Celtic Colours International Festival, which happens annually when Cape Breton's landscape is at its most beautiful October. Music, culture, and nature come together for one epic week that draws attendees from around the globe. I had the absolute pleasure of attending the opening concert this year in Port Hawkesbury, followed by a different concert each day across the island. The combination of world-class musicians, stunning venues, and deep cultural roots creates an experience like no other. Joining me today is Yvette Rogers, who's here to share more about how this incredible festival came to be and what makes it such a beloved celebration. Yvette, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
I got to tell you, I'm still on a high.
Mm-hmm.
I've been home a few days now. I'm still on a high from just being there, and it's It's as much a feeling as an event, the Celtic Colours. So let's start with the history a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's grown into such a massive and beloved event, as I mentioned, over the years. How did it all begin, and what was the vision behind it?
I'm glad that you prefaced this question with what you described as the feeling that you get when you're here doing Celtic Colours, because that is really something that is present on the island, and especially at that time of year. And I think we're so blessed in this neck of the woods to have a lot of music, and it almost seems like the music is very present and you can feel it, and it spills through all of the musicians that happen to play everywhere. But that's organically what life has been like in Cape Breton over the years. And so years ago, two musicians, Joella Folds and Max McDonald, both musicians themselves, and then both also involved in music industry in like managing other musicians, they really saw what a special thing we had here with quite a distinct musical culture, and also recognized how many people really valued the work of artists, valued the work of culture, traveled to see them. And so, you know, they got to talking about what the idea of the festival, of having something here, would be like. And they did a bit of digging, and they also explored other festivals. So they traveled over to Celtic Connections in Scotland, which is a long-standing Celtic music festival in Glasgow, which really opened their eyes there as well and introduced them to a lot of other presenters from other festivals around the world who held folk music festivals and world music festivals. And when they introduced themselves as being from Cape Breton, it was like the response was like, oh, because the tunes had traveled over there and they knew Cape Breton compositions, and they really held Cape Breton, other musicians really held Cape Breton in like a respected place. And so other musicians recognized what a special place Cape Breton was for its music. And so they launched the idea of hosting a festival that celebrated that music, but joined Cape Breton musicians with other musicians of impeccable caliber and special cultural significance from other parts of the world, and bring them here to Cape Breton to host a festival. And I think initially, you know, this was the late 90s. The steel plant was closing. There was some doom and gloom around the economy here. I don't think a lot of folks really recognized the value at that time, even though we had a lot of tourism because the place is quite beautiful, and because the culture is so present here, as an organized fashion to say, like, this is something that would sell. I think there was probably a little bit of reluctance on the part of funders, but they were fortunate to have, you know, participation and help from other festivals around the world who kind of came and showed what they did with their festivals. And Joella and Max set out to kind of launch the vision of having one in Cape Breton. And I think that their vision is a bit distinct in that it's all over the island. And the reason for that is because that's really where the music rooted itself. So there's a lot of cultural significance in that, you know, it was the musical culture of the Gaels that really influenced the musical tradition around here locally. And then that also mixed and intermingled with other settler cultures and also with Mi'kmaq culture. And then with, you know, over time, you know, we've just developed, you know, a lot of musicians of all genres, first of all, but as far as the, you know, predominantly Gaelic music traditions, we've developed a bit of an accent of our own dialectically. And it's interesting to explore different parts of the island to discover different parts of that culture and that music. And so that was their kind of idea. And in 1997, I believe, was the first festival. And it's just grown and grown ever since.
Yeah, one of the things that just struck me was how brilliant this is, because it really does move you around the entire island from venue to venue, just seeing the most breathtaking scenery along the way, of course, and then in each part. So there's an incredible variety of venues, as I mentioned, and I was lucky enough to attend a concert at the Fortress of Louisbourg. Wow, absolutely breathtaking. Acoustic. It was all acoustic. It was by candlelight. It's in this historic fortress that Parks Canada has just done an incredible job restoring. And it was intimate. I imagine the tickets for that sell out almost immediately.
Per year. Yeah.
So what are some of the other really special or unique venues people can experience concerts during the festival?
Well, it is a nice mix of things because you have those really special and unique experiences, like Step Into the Past, which is a concert we hold annually at the Fortress. And it's the only one that does no acoustic reinforcement. So you really are stepping into the past in that case. And it's quite a beautiful experience. Then there's also a whole range of venues, from theaters to schools to arenas, to churches. So there's really a different vibe at every venue that you go to. And each of the concerts are curated as such too. Sometimes, one concert might be paying attention to Culture Bear and it's a tribute show, and one might be a celebration of an instrument like the Guitar Summit or the Piper's Ceilidh, so it's really quite interesting to have a bunch of different types of shows in a bunch of different communities, and in a bunch of different venues, a variety of different types of venues to give everybody that unique experience. You feel like you would if you landed there in the summer at one of the summer festivals and you're in the little fire hall having soup before your show. And also in soft seat theater, which gives you really elegant experience for watching the artist perform.
Yeah. And, another venue I just want to point out for people who may be thinking is, in Iona, the Malagawach Church. I mean, again, just an absolutely spectacular setting to have a concert.
Yeah. And that's located in a living history museum, the Highland Village Ballin-and-Gale. And that is open during the week, and they also host community cultural experiences as well. So if you wanted to go on a special storytelling tour or a milling frolic, then you can meet with those at the museum to experience those things, which is quite lovely. And the church itself really is, the pews are tiny, and and it's such a beautiful setting, and you're atop the hill and in the very center of the island. So you can see the middle of the Bredor Lake, which is a huge saltwater lake in the middle of the island. It's really stunning. We're so blessed to have such beautiful places to host shows and to live. And so inviting visitors to join those who are from here to get to experience these shows and different events along the way is really, it is a lovely thing for sure.
We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, but we'll be right back with more from Yvette Rogers from Celtic Colours.
Are your poor communication skills holding you back from being the leader you know you can be? The Master Communicator is a podcast that can help you improve your communication skills in just a few minutes a week. I'm David Tyler, a broadcaster and communication coach, and each week I deliver bite-sized masterclasses for busy leaders like you. Each episode is packed with practical techniques and strategies to help you navigate challenging conversations, delivering impactful messages, and inspire your team. Whether you're looking to enhance your executive presence, build a culture of trust, or simply lead with more confidence, the Master Communicator is your go-to resource. Subscribe now and start your journey to becoming the leader you were meant to be. Transform your communication skills, one episode at a time.
Hey there, this is Todd Arkell, host of The Mental Approach. Thank you for taking the time to listen to The Mental Approach. I created this series for parents and their athletes because everyone is training their physical skills, but so few of you are training your mind. And I've assembled a cross-section of athletes and coaches as guests to provide you with inspirational stories, practical advice, and some encouragement to gain the edge you need both on and off the field of play. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course at thementalapproach.com.
Okay, we're back with Yvette Rogers from Celtic Colours. Yvette, there are a lot of events and activities that people can participate in, from community meals, outdoor hikes. There really does feel like there's something for everyone. Can you tell me and my listeners a little bit more about some of the experiences people can enjoy beyond the concerts?
Absolutely. So these are what we would label as community cultural experiences. They are community events that are hosted by nonprofit organizations and groups and institutions around the island. And they apply to list their event with us in association with the festival. And then we vet them and approve them. And the ones that seem like a good fit get listed in the program. There are hundreds. And how it came about is I think more people wanted to get involved with the festival. But we didn't really have the capacity to grow the shows anymore. I mean, we do several shows a night for 9 nights. And, there's only so much capacity to do that. However, there was so much more that some of these venues could offer. So they might not be the right fit for hosting a show, but they make a mean corned beef dinner and they have it every month or every spring or every fall, So these types of organizations host one more during Celtic Colours. And it's a lovely way to fill your belly and also get to support a local community hall often. And many times they're in rural communities where there aren't a whole lot of other dining options. We, of course, hope that people do visit local restaurants as well, because there's a lot of great food to be had out there. But the community meal is a regular part of life here in Cape Breton anyway. And so that happens during the festival. There are also a series of learning opportunities. So there are ways to learn how to play the fiddle. If you are a fiddler and you want to attend the Buddy McMaster Fiddle Camp, or if you are interested in heritage craft and you want to learn a little bit more about an area by digging into a workshop from craftspeople from that area, like weaving, or you want to learn more about the Gaelic language and you want to attend a milling frolic and, sing along with folks or attend a local fèis. There are a number of jam sessions, participatory events. So there's a ton of things that you can do before or after the show. And it's both a way for community organizations to get involved and share their knowledge and what they have to offer, or host a great party. But also it is a really great way for people to, it just makes some of the concert experiences that much more special. So, if you manage to take in a tour of the coal mine at the Miners Museum, and then you also caught the Men of the Deeps when you were in Inverness, that experience would be so much more impactful had you also walked down in the mine and learned what life was like for them. And also when you're listening maybe to a Gaelic artist, and if you don't have Gaelic, you may not understand what they're saying, but yet it moves you to such a degree. When you get to go spend some time in a place like Ballinagale or one of the local Gaelic groups hosted events where you can learn a bit more about the language and how it influences how people think, it just resonates in a completely different way. So it is a beautiful way to both have too much choice, if anything, for your vacation, which is probably part of the reason why people come back year after year too.
I was just going to say they have to
do something else.
And you mentioned the Gaelic College, and I want to touch on that a little bit because it seems like it's such a fun part of the festival. And I have to note, I did not go. That is way past my bedtime. But some year maybe I will. But you said this is where artists get together every night after all of the concerts. So, and people are welcome to come and join. This runs typically from 11 p.m. till about 3 in the morning. So can you tell everybody a little bit about that?
So Festival Club, over the years, it's really been the landing pad for when all of the artists return from madly off in all directions around the island. And they gather at the Gaelic College and they get to have some tunes with one another. And there's also opportunity for them to do a slot and perform for the audience. For the audience, it's great because it's like a pub style show where they never know who's going to play, but it's going to be one of the festival artists, which is great because if you happen to get tickets for a show, you might get to see an artist you haven't seen yet because they were playing the same night in a different community or something. So that's one thing that's a real blessing. It's also a lot of fun because sometimes these folks, it's a small world in the land of folk music in some respects. And so sometimes it's a bit of a reunion for people who may have played together at another folk festival in a different part of Canada or the world. And then they get together again during Celtic Colours and lo and behold, hop up on stage and have the kind of a set that, unless an artistic director programmed them into a show together, you wouldn't have gotten to see, so it's quite lovely to have some of those spur of the moment things happen. And it is quite late at night. That is one thing. But I find the music does give you a bit of a second wind, and it's great for the kind of person that might have, like, maybe you just didn't get enough when you went to the show and made you thirsty for a little more music. Then it's a good opportunity to see a bit more. But yeah, it does go quite late into the wee hours.
I mean, everybody I talked to said it is one of the most fun experiences to go to. So it's definitely on my list, but I ran all day, every day, because the backdrop that this is set against. How does the festival take advantage of the fall colors and this beautiful scenery to enhance the overall experience for visitors?
Well, I think it's really we're just quite blessed. Like, we're really quite grateful to be in this backdrop. And I think that was one of the inspirations for, well, I mean, of course, I think the key inspiration being that the music and the culture had sprung up in all of these areas. And so it was an opportunity to explore them. We're just so blessed. I've often said, like, we live in a painting. It's so beautiful here. And what an opportunity for both those of us who live here and those who are away, who are fortunate enough to have access to some wheels and get to travel, get to see some of these beautiful places. It's quite lovely. And so when the community events, started coming into the fold of people wanting to know how to get involved in some way, and if they couldn't host a concert, but perhaps they could host a workshop. That's actually my role with the festival as the outreach coordinator, is like just liaise with them to see what's happening. And then oftentimes they'll propose something that's a great fit, and it goes right in. And sometimes it's like, oh, you know what? If you had this in the afternoon, then this organization is having supper in the evening. And then you drive further up the coast and this is happening. So sometimes it works out well to be pieced together in a number of different trips. But because there's so much happening all over the place, there's way too many choices as it is. But it's lovely because it does encourage you to tour and get to see different parts of the island. The concerts also are usually clustered by a number of days as well. So if you did want to go and stay in a certain neck of the woods, there's probably a concert the day, like a few days in a row, not that far from one another, so a relatively close drive. So half an hour drive to an hour's drive, like, would be your next concert within that area. So if you're in Richmond County, there's, Petit de Gras had a concert on Saturday night, and Lordways had a concert on Sunday afternoon, Discourse on Monday evening, Lower River on Tuesday evening, St. Peter's on Wednesday evening. So if you were staying in that corner, you could get to see a different show every night, visit a different community. There's different workshops and hikes and things along the way. And then explore a corner of the island that you might not have before. And likewise with Nauvoo and Sydney and surrounding areas in the Highlands.
It was funny you said living in a painting. I actually said that. I said, I feel like I'm driving through a Bob Ross painting every day. It was wild. And obviously this festival has impacted the local communities, both culturally and economically over the years. What has been the biggest impact of this?
I mean, I think it's definitely extended the tourist season. Originally, typically, after Labor Day, the tourist season would dwindle. I mean, and we had a lot of folks who would come to visit Cape Breton Island for the scenery because it is so beautiful. But keeping things open for a long period of time really requires some sustained activity, right? Because otherwise you're going to, you have to, in order to keep staff on and whatnot, you still have to have people coming through the doors. And the fall is just so beautiful. And I think part of the motivation for having it in the fall initially was to not step on the toes of all of the summer festivals and things that were already happening. So that if they were going to have another festival that celebrated Gaelic music, it kind of had to be in the shoulder season so it wouldn't, tread on any of the others. But also, it's so beautiful when the leaves turn. And so it's always timed to happen around the Canadian Thanksgiving long weekend. So the Friday of Thanksgiving and then the whole following week. So it's 9 days in totality. And some years are better than others for luck with the changing of the leaves. But fortunately, it's one of those places that you could drive the same route all 4 seasons and you're going to see 10 different paintings, so it is we're pretty lucky.
Well, if we haven't enticed people yet, Yvette, I don't know that we haven't done our job. So I'm sure people are now wanting to know, how do we plan for 2025? And all I have to say is you got to start planning now, I think. But you can tell them how to do that.
We do start getting some of the calls quite early too. So we do need some time to plan who's going to be in the shows and whatnot. I will say that every year the lineup launches toward the end of June. So for the COVID, of course, put a change in things, and travel restrictions in 2022 were later lifted. So our timeline was a bit shifted in 2022. But we've kind of gone back to kind of the original game plan that had worked for so many years, is late June, lineup launch. 2 weeks later, the tickets go on sale. So you really can't plan everything until the lineup's launched. And you may want to steer those decisions based on the artists that you want to go see, or if there are events that you're particularly interested in, if you're a hiker, or if you're, a weaving enthusiast or whatnot, or if there's a workshop you really want to attend with a certain artist. So you can kind of scan the program to see what you want, or you might want to explore a different part of Cape Breton and you just say, I'm just going to plunk myself here. Whatever's going on around there, I can do, which, by the way, still is not a bad strategy. If you know you're going to get to see some good music and you're not sure what to do, then that is a good way to do it, because you can just explore and happen upon a number of wonderful things. But, there's more than one way to cut that pie up. We try our very best to get the venues sorted out early. And so that is a process where everyone reapplies every year. So the community organizations that host the concerts in the church halls and fire halls and whatnot around the island, they apply to host the show. They get a portion of the ticket proceeds, and they host the artists. They feed them supper and, provide community volunteers. And there are so many of them. We're so blessed, and many repeat because it's worked really well over the years. So they apply again the following year. And then sometimes we'll get new applicants as well. We try to get that rolling, ideally before the end of this year, so that we can at least make some of those decisions in the very early winter, and ideally, around February, post the venue schedule, so that at least you know the where and the when and what time. And if you did want to plan by geography, then you could do that, because accommodations can get tight, especially if there are people that are coming year after year and they might have a favorite and they book next year this year. That does happen. But I would advise for most folks to, if you have your heart set on somewhere, definitely book in early. And otherwise have a see about where everything is happening. You can carve a bit of a strategy if you were looking geographically. But mainly June. June is when you're going to see the artist lineup, see what the shows are saying, who you want to go see, what the events are taking place, and then filter out a bit of a game plan for where you're going to stay and what you're going to see. And then cross your fingers for when tickets go on sale, and have a plan B and C too, just in case. So there's 50 shows. Not everything is going to sell out opening day, but opening day is busy. And there's certain shows, like you mentioned, to the Step Into the Past show that you attended. I think it might be 120 people total. So that's a relatively small venue in the grand scheme of things. When you have a number of people who are traveling, might want to go to that. So those might sell out sooner, or those that are closer. A lot of people stay in the village of Bedak. So the concerts that take place in the village of Bedak do tend to sell quickly, because people want to go to a concert that's close to their accommodations in some cases. But yeah, everything, the opening day, we are all hands on deck in the box office, even people who don't normally work the box office. And then also we try to get people sorted. If things don't come to on the first day, there's a wait list that we try to facilitate best we can. And by and large, I think by the time the festival rolls around, we hope that most people find themselves an enjoyable experience and get to see some of the artists that they're looking forward to see, and get to take in the island that we're so blessed to live in.
All right. So one more time then for people, website and social channels.
CelticColours.ca. So that's COLOURS. At Celtic Colours on Instagram, and Celtic Colours International Festival on Facebook.
All right. Amazing. Yvette, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope I will see you in 2025.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your gracious questions and your lovely description of the festival. And I'm so glad that you had a wonderful experience.
Cape Breton is known for its rugged beauty, and it seems to have a magnetic pull for those looking to take on bold new adventures. In this next interview, I'm joined by Colin McAllister, one half of the famous design duo Colin and Justin, who recently took on one of their most ambitious projects yet, transforming a rundown hotel in Louisbourg into the stunning North Star Resort. Colin joins me now to share how this project came to be and the journey they've had with it so far. Welcome to What She Said, Colin.
Hey, thanks for having us. How are you doing?
I'm great. Well, I just visited your resort, so I had a wonderful time there for a couple of days. And what I'm wondering is what drew you and Justin to Cape Breton in the first place, and what made you decide to take on this massive hotel renovation in Louisbourg, of all places?
You know, I think as both being Scottish, I think it was, that whole kind of Celtic kind of magnetism that you get from Nova Scotia, and especially from Cape Breton, was really, really appealing to us. And I think we were both feeling a little bit homesick. We hadn't been back to Scotland in quite a while. And I think we were just craving some tartan and some whiskey and some good banter in our lives. And actually, luckily, we've traveled a lot in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton prior to buying the hotel. So we like the province. I like the people. There's a different vibe there. And there is just something incredible about being so close to the ocean. But most people go there on vacation. It's not everyone that thinks, okay, let's buy a 20-bedroom hotel. Let's create restaurants and let's do it during COVID. Maybe we do things slightly differently. Justin was super passionate about this whole project from the get-go. I took a bit of warming up to it because it just seemed like such a right turn for both of us. You read these stories of people who suddenly have a kind of turn in their lives. I was like a very, very early midlife crisis, and very early. And you think, what are they thinking? And they're waiting to something that they have no experience of. And that's exactly what the pair of us have done in Louisbourg with North Star. Suddenly, we've inherited a 20-bedroom hotel and we're running it, and we have staff and responsibilities and guests and very grown up kind of things to deal with. But it's been magnificent. It's been absolutely magnificent. And I think for me, it's been the thing that I wanted. Justin and I had talked about the idea that as human beings, we're being pushed further away from each other. We think we're communicating more online and texting and emojis and all of the above. I actually feel like we're kind of less personal than we used to be. And we had a chat like prior to COVID saying, we need to I want more humans in my life. I need to see people face to face. I want to see how tall they are. I want to know what they smell like. I want to feel their energy and their auras. And then suddenly COVID came along and it pushed people even further apart. And I think the hotel is a reaction to that. Honestly, we both had a panic that we're losing our humanity. And I think that Louisbourg and Cape Breton is the answer.
Oh, I feel that in such a deep level. I really do, Colin. And Louisbourg, though, is a small, close-knit community, and coming in as an outsider can sometimes be tricky. So how did you work with the locals during this project, and what was the response as you began to transform the North Star?
I think there's a history of people who go to small places, especially islands. And suddenly you're the person that's from away, as they like to say, out in Atlantic Canada. We're lucky we have a secret weapon that battles our way through that. It's almost like a shield, a cloak of acceptance. And that is that we're Scottish. And their little Celtic DNAs are all twitching away. And I think they want to say, oh, you're from away. But instead they say, well, you took your time getting here. And a nice way to be. I think also, we're not some entity. Justin, we're not a corporation in Toronto, in a big city, making decisions about people's lives in a town of 700. We were there from day one, rolling up our sleeves, getting involved, in all the grit as well as the glamour, and I think that it's just who we are. It's who we've always been. It's how we work. And I think that actually really kind of wins over people because they're like, okay, you know what? You're exactly like we are. You wouldn't ask us to do one thing that you wouldn't do yourselves. So everyone else just rolls their sleeves up and makes it happen. And it was a weird thing, in the first year, we decided we kind of learned something really quick, probably in the first couple of weeks. And that was that we were going to positively discriminate with our choice of staff. Sounds terrible, doesn't it? But we were only going to employ Atlantic women who were 50 and over.
Oh my God. I think I just fell in love with you.
Because all the Atlantic women we met who were 50 and over all rolled their sleeves up, all had a great can-do attitude, and all helped us create this space, So we were like, okay, we need our gals in there.
Honest to God, my heart just burst. That is the most amazing thing you could have said on What She Said. I think maybe you researched that answer perhaps, but I don't know. That was great.
Absolute truth. And I've still got all my gals as well. So if you're listening, well done, ladies.
So you've been transforming spaces on TV for years, obviously, but this project seemed particularly personal. So was the experience of renovating the North Star different because it was your own investment and vision? Did it feel more challenging or rewarding compared to other projects you had done?
I think if you've renovated properties in the past and maybe they were for the market, then there's an element of you being personal about them because obviously it's your work. It's not just a box that people move into. You put your stamp on it, your individuality on it. And that's something that we've both been really strong about. It's something you grow into. You don't become that person overnight, and I think it's part of our DNA of being British, working a lot in design in the UK, working in Australia, working in continental Europe, and then coming to Canada and doing a lot of designing here. I think that's got us to this point. So producing a hotel is something that we've always wanted to do because we love hotels. We love hoteliers, because we're journalists first and foremost. That's where we come from, print media. We still write every week for Post Media, for the National Post. So we've interviewed a lot of hoteliers, and they were always telling us, just about this fabulous way of having people there who were guests of yours, and you had to look after them, and what a great, great, great privilege that was. We both love that whole kind of thought process. And we wanted to do something with the hotel. The hotel was really well looked after, but it was just a bit dated. And so we wanted to just update it. We love potential. It's what we love more than anything is potential. And the hotel had it just in heaps.
Well, I have to tell you, obviously you've mentioned you took a very hands-on approach with this project, but I was quite surprised to see you and Justin involved in every single aspect from waiting tables. I've heard that you even make the beds and do some of the housekeeping. Why is this aspect of it so important to you?
Well, it's your name above the door. So you have to be on it. You have to know what's happening. And we're not control freaks and we're not micromanagers, but we do care. And I think that's the lovely thing about this whole project. I think, it's seasonal. So it's not like you're there 365 days a year. It feels like an event, come May, we're like, okay, it's time to get back. The call of the Cape is there. We want to get back to Cape Breton. And it is just the most delightful way to spend a summer. You're on the ocean. The Atlantic is on our doorstep. People download apps to hear the tide. We just open a window and it just feels so, so special. So I think first and foremost, we were captivated by that whole experience of being in a small community in Atlantic Canada. And then thinking, okay, we want to share this experience with others. We want it to be authentic. We want it to be quality, and we want it to be rewarding, and I think that's really important. We didn't want anything that was too fussy. We wanted something that just gave you that wonderful exposure to the ocean. And luckily, the hotel sits in the most perfect peninsula.
It really does.
With unbroken views right across the Louisbourg Harbour, out to the ocean. You can see the fabulous 18th century fortress of Louisbourg from the hotel. You can see the beautiful Louisbourg Lighthouse the site of the first lighthouse in Canada, which has just been fully refurbished. So it's looking glamorous and fabulous. And then just coastal trails. I mean, if that is a thing that's totally blown me away, that we work really, really hard, but we always make time to get out and get along the coast, because just honestly, being there does something to you. It energizes you. It blows away the cobwebs. It just makes you feel like you're alive.
I couldn't agree more. The design of the North Star strikes a balance between chic and cozy with a nod to local coastal culture. Can you tell us a bit about your design inspiration and what you want guests to feel when they stay there?
I think the design for the North Star, it's about having an appreciation for the ocean, knowing that you're in a coastal resort, but not being hokey. It's not navy and white with life preservers hanging on the walls and giant anchors everywhere. It's about trying to kind of dial that back a little bit. I think texture was really important as well. Rather than having jarring colors, we wanted everything to kind of blend into each other. So there was a softness and a quietness to the design, because we don't want to be loud and compete with that wonderful sense of peace that you get from being on the ocean. So that was really, really important to us. And just having textural layers in there so that it felt rewarding. And so that for you, the guest, you could think, okay, well, I'm going to be beautiful and cool, and there's air conditioning in every room, views of the ocean. You're going to feel cool and collected and really enjoy yourself being there. But there's other layers there. When we get into fall, things start to get a little bit cooler at night. There's nice little pashminas and wraps and things that you can drape around yourself so that you feel that somebody is really taking care of you. And I think that's important, and it's the small things that add up just to make you feel that someone actually cares. Like, we make sure all the rooms are set when you arrive, so the lighting's on, there's music playing in the rooms, they're set to the temperature that you would need them to be, whether it was super warm, as it was all summer in Cape Breton, so the air conditioning was on all the time, or we'll crank up the heat, in the cooler times of the year.
It's a big shift, though, from designers to hoteliers. Have there been any aspects of hospitality that have surprised you?
I think just the fact that you're on 24/7, and that's the thing. I mean, we're used to that, we've been in the public eye for, nearly 30 years. And so you learn that it's part of your craft, that you have to be on at all times. So it's fine. And also, when it's your business, you wake up in the morning and even the most mundane things, you just approach them with gusto because it's yours, and it's like something boring like a delivery day, where you have to move older things to the front, put newer things to the back, take notes of how many came in, how many went out, all of that, which is actually deathly dull. Being honest, it still feels brilliant because you think, okay, we weren't bringing these things in, we didn't sell them. And if we didn't sell them, we didn't have any guests. So there's a real push for you just to be rewarded. And I think that's something about being there as well. It influences how you choose to view your day. And that's up to you. That's up to no one else. If you hate your job, if you want to stay in bed all day because the prospect just turns you off, you got to do something about that. And sometimes it's about either changing your lifestyle or it's about changing your attitude as well. There's a set of things we all have to do. We all have bills to pay, so just approach it with gusto. Get a bit of love in your life. Get a great partner to share it with you as well. Nobody wants to be on their journey on their own. And hopefully you'll have a perfect life.
So what's next for the North Star? Do you have plans to expand, add new features, perhaps take on another project in the region?
Well, we love our plot of ground. We've got 5 acres. So Daddy got space. We got some space to move into. So we would actually like to add some little architectural cabins to the site with a view over the harbour and just make more of that. We'd like to explore kind of maybe getting to the Barrachuang, which is a little inlet to the side of us, a little protected sea inlet, and maybe put a dock in there and get some like ocean canoeing and stuff done, kayaking, which would be pretty fantastic. But I think just always adding, we're always sweetening the rooms. We change things all the time. We change out the furniture year upon year. Things that we didn't like, things that were just in because that was all we could get at the time. We're always kind of weeding out these things, So I think keeping it organic keeps it interesting as well, both for us and for our guests, So I think, just to continue the greatness of North Star, and just this year has been particularly fantastic because it's year 4. And I think this year, it took us 4 years to kind of figure this bit out, how we could actually run North Star and do our day job. So all summer, we were still working on our newspaper columns. We have a magazine, Cabin Magazine with a K, Cabin Magazine, which you can see online and you can get in print, which is all about cottage country. It's all about Muskoka, the Kawarthas, and Haliburton County. And it's about luxury lifestyle. It's about being the best that you can in these areas as well. And I think it is just that whole escapism. Anything that involves water seems to be part of our DNA now. We have a cabin in Ontario on a lake. We have a hotel right on Atlantic Canada. And even our condo in downtown Toronto, we can see clearly right across Lake Ontario. I think Justin's an Aquarius and I'm a Capricorn, so I should be kind of grounded and earthy. So maybe his little aquaticness has influenced me.
I love it. So for anyone considering a visit to Cape Breton and staying at the North Star, what can they expect from their stay? And why should they add this to their must-visit list?
You should come to Cape Breton first and foremost because it has been Condé Nast Traveler's best island in North America for a good few years in a row, which is fantastic. And Condé Nast Traveler know what they're talking about. It is compact. It's very small. And it is absolutely beautiful. It's like a mini slice of Scotland. If you're on the Cabot Trail, really famous trail, it is just incredible. You get these beautiful winding roads and kind of cliff climbs, almost like you would get, if you were near Cannes in the south of France. It's got that kind of dangerous roadway feel, which is fantastic. And then you can come south to Louisbourg. We have the 18th century fortress of Louisbourg from Parks Canada, which is incredible, which is actually a town. It's not a museum. It is a full town with cobbled streets and a beautiful French chapel. It's spectacular, and then there's the lighthouse there. So we get a lot of guests for that. A lot of guests come for the trails, which is incredible. It's very flat where we are as well. So I think if you're a cyclist, not a lot of traffic either, in a town of 700 people, it's going to be perfect for you as well. We have a restaurant called The Bothy that's attached to North Star. And people love that. It's a bit of a weird building. It's what are they called? It's the metal buildings. It's like a kind of what is that called again? It's called Quonset hut. It's a Quonset hut, which is a kind of like metallic building, but the whole thing's lined in timber. So it's really warm and escapist. We have live music there from great local Celtic musicians. And people love that. We've got great fresh seafood, beautiful halibut that comes from the wharf. We're always trying to get local produce in there. All the honey comes from the Tuckamore Homestead, which is on the other side of Sydney. Fabulous young couple who came back to the Cape in their 30s and opened a homestead. Our greens come from our neighbour's garden, Back Beach Gardens. People crunch on these beautiful microgreens on our salads and go, how come that tastes so fresh? You can taste the earth. It was in the ground 20 minutes ago. It's fantastic that we can do that. And that there's a great network of local people who are there trying to make a go of this fabulous lifestyle.
So where can people go then, Colin, to, book their trip to the North Star? Are there social channels they can follow?
Yes. If you look up Hello North Star, it's on Instagram and on Facebook. You can go to hellonorthstar.ca, which is our website. And you're going to look at our website, and there's a lot of pictures on there of the resort. There's a great drone photograph of the whole peninsula and stuff. And you're going to see there that for a brand new website, there's something missing. It doesn't have a booking mechanism. And it's because we don't want technology to push you further away. We want you to phone us. You're going to call us.
Oh my God, I love that.
There's a phone number. You're going to call and you're going to speak to us. You're going to speak to our divine Mrs. McDonald, who is a gay icon and a local legend. Fantastic. She was featured in Hello Canada this year, one page ahead of Margot Robbie. That's as much as a legend as she is. You're going to speak to one of us and we're going to ask you questions about when you're coming, and you're going to be blown away when we actually want to know what time you're going to come in so we can make sure your room's ready for you.
Incredible. Colin, I can't thank you enough for obviously my stay, which was fantastic, but for joining me today. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And let's be having you back with us very soon.
Oh, I will be.
If today's podcast resonated with you, spread the word and share the inspiration. Don't forget to hit subscribe on What She Said across your favorite podcast platforms. Crave more? Join my vibrant community by signing up for my newsletter at whatshesaidtalk.com, and let's get social on Facebook, Instagram, and X at What She Said Talk. Dive into my world a little deeper on TikTok and Threads at Candace Said. And for those who love the airwaves, catch me weekly on 105.9 The Region, Blast the Radio, and 107.7 Pulse FM. Until next time, keep making waves, and remember, your voice matters.
Hi, I'm Emily Roger, and I host a leadership show called The Boiling Point with my co-host, Dave Vale. Together, we sit down with trailblazing entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers who are driving meaningful change in our world. The show is all about exploring the lives and perspectives of leaders who are making a difference. Join us for insightful conversations that challenge the status quo, spark new ideas, and inspire you to take action. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or at boilingpointpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Michelle Davis, host of Maverick Makers. Every week, I'm meeting entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs who are making it happen. These bold thinkers are taking big risks, are trailblazing the way in their industries and lives, and are changing how things are done or made. You will learn about their journeys, their lessons learned, and their biggest Maverick moves to date. Listen to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at maverickmakerspodcast.com.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.